Hi everyone, this is Bella, and today I'm going to speak to you about the total solar eclipse that we're going to have in just a few hours. And this energy is going to be intense for the next 2-3 days, especially. You can see here in the wheel where we have the constellations and the signs, and we have the I Ching hexagrams on the inside. You can see this alignment between Sun, Moon, Mercury, and here on the other side you have Lilith and the Earth. And that is in Gene Key 5 and Gene Key 35. And then two other relationships that are interesting is that we have Venus and Pluto in 61 in Capricorn together. Speak about that a little bit more. And we also have the square becoming more and more exact again between Uranus and Saturn. So that kind of tension between the old and the new. And that's going to become exact one day before Christmas, I believe. So coming back to the eclipse, we have 5, the drummer, we have the 35, the heroine in the 64 doors. Those are the archetypes. Sagittarius is a fire archetype, Gemini is an air archetype. And I have seen all this year, I've looked at the North Node and I felt like that was what we needed to follow. So the North Node here in Gene Key 20 has to do with being present so that we can discern, being present so that we can take right action. And Gemini has this ability to communicate, to logically understand, to be a messenger, and to also get the information and analyze it and make sense of it. So that has felt the way that we would advance in the best possible way this year, with clarity, with logic, with finding our truth. That's Gemini, finding our truth by looking at all the different options, all the different information. And now here it feels like we are asked to look at the 5 at Sagittarius as a fire sign. There's more about impulse here. There's more about our belief. And it feels like there is something here with maybe it's time to look into our beliefs. It's looking into what do we have faith in? And it's speaking to us with a 5 about our natural rhythm. It's speaking about the drummer saying, this is my beat. This is how I am doing it. So I feel like it's time to say, okay, what is the beat of my drum? How do I want to play? What do I believe in? After this year when I've used my energy in Gemini and I found the truth for me, when I'm present in my body, when I feel centered, that's when I have clarity. So what is that clarity? And there might be some beliefs that need to go. There might be some rhythms that you're not wanting to play anymore. And that can include playing it with other people as well. And we also have the South Node here in the 34. So it's telling us as well to kind of leave behind us. And the nodes are going to change in the beginning of the year. So this is the last eclipse that we have in Sagittarius and Gemini. And then we're going to move on. And the next eclipses are going to be for 18 months in Taurus and Scorpio. So here is like we are getting done with the South Node. So hopefully we have learned the lesson by now that forcing or trying isn't what's going to work. Either we do it or we don't. Trying is not an option. And then when it comes to forcing, that is to kind of use muscle and a more yang outside force instead of coming into our inner strength. And that inner strength really comes from when we can listen to this axis. We listen to our inner rhythm. We listen to our inner truth, and we are in presence. So that's what we have learned, we could say, during the 18th months that we had the nodes here in Sagittarius and Gemini, or at least that was the possibility that hopefully we learned. And it's also interesting that we have Lilith here together with the Earth, because she was thrown out of paradise because she was too rebellious and Adam couldn't really handle her. And that's where he would prefer Eve. So here there is something about as well, I would say a core wound, that when you are in your truth, because she was in her feminine truth, she was in her rawness, and the feminine, as all other things, consists of its own polarity. So there is dark feminine, there's light feminine. So if Lilith was living out those both polarities, that wasn't welcome. And I believe that there is something here about us daring to live out our truth And there can be a wound that says, if I do live out my truth, the wholeness of who I am, the extremes that are there in me, or the polarities more than anything there in me, then I'm not going to be welcome. Then I'm going to be thrown out. So I believe that here it is about overcoming that and tuning into the adventure of life, which is this 35, because we're speaking about the heroine. That is the adventure of life. And we can see here in the body graph that is in the throat center. So it is an expression that comes from us, that is in adventure, that is our truth. It's abstract. It's the way we express in the world, through all our ways. And this is pointing here also towards the emotional center. So it's here to be unpredictable, I would say. And that's maybe what Lilith was, too unpredictable. But we are unique, and we are here to express who we are, and we are here to find our own rhythm. I believe also it's kind of interesting to have Mercury, which is ruling Gemini, here on the other side. And it's almost like he's saying, yeah, we have been here with the Gemini energy seeking the truth, but now I'm like really here, and I want to know, I want to ask the sun and the moon, what is the truth here? What is the impulses that we are here to listen to and to follow for the future, for what's coming? And we also, like I was saying, we have Venus and Pluto here. And Pluto has been in the 61 for a long time. That's the shadow of psychosis. And Capricorn is about structures, right? So we have seen this about structures falling apart. Pluto is about transforming, and transforming through death and rebirth. It's the ruler of Scorpio. So it has that kind of dark waters, dark shadow work to it. And we could also say that here in Capricorn, it has to do with that, the patriarch, with that, with a low frequency masculine energy. And here I believe that Venus is coming, and she's looking at this and she's saying, is this the way that you're going to continue to be? Or what is a new way? What is the masculine way that needs to die? So that, maybe mythologically we could say, if the masculine that is working in the shadow is dying and transforming, because Venus comes here and they have a dialogue, maybe that's when Lilith can be accepted the way she is, maybe where she can live her adventure, maybe when she has the right to be in her emotions, she has the right to be who she is. And the psychosis of kind of looking down at the feminine, the things that we can't predict in ways it has been done, that is possibly what can fall apart, so that we can have structures that are based on values, with Venus here, on values that are higher values, and that aren't self-serving, that are whole-serving, that care about the whole. So I believe that they are here in communication, and Venus is going to go back and forth. So she's here now, but then she's going to also retrograde and come back. So there are a few times in the next 3 months where Pluto and Venus are going to be able to have this conversation, and where I believe that we can see a lot of things changing. I believe that this is an impulse for change and for coming back to our truth and our individuality. I would also say that where the total solar eclipse is going to be is close to the south pole of the earth. So we could say that this is the root chakra. That's where we're going to have this darkening of the sun. And so we could say that is an activation of the root chakra, of the kundalini of earth. And that is exactly what I would say that Lilith stands for. She dared to live out that energy, that kundalini, that raw energy that makes us show up in the truth and the rawness of who we are. And that wasn't welcome. So maybe Mother Earth now is saying it is welcome, and it's going to happen. And it's going to be aligned with you, because I'm showing you, I'm becoming the role model example for what is possible now. And yeah, it feels, if we look at the alignment and we think about the earth and the south pole, it feels like it is a powerful alignment. That, yeah, how many times do we have an eclipse that is exactly falling there, in alignment with Lilith, and Venus here speaking with Pluto. So the next thing I wanted to do is to actually take a little bit of a look at the total quantum activations. So here we can see that we have all the black planets and we also have the red planets. So what does that mean? Well, the black is where all the planetary bodies are in the sky right now. And the red is where they were 3 months ago, 88, 89 days ago. So we could say as well that it is 88 degrees in the wheel. So if we look where the sun is now, we have sun in Sagittarius. So if we will go back 88 degrees in the wheel, the sun would be back here in the 64. And that is the quantum activation that came through the transmission of human design and that we're using for the calculation, both in human design and in gene keys, those 88 degrees. And that corresponds to 88, 89 days, which is the time it takes for Mercury to go around all the signs. So there is something interesting here, and that also has to do with our mind that is on one side, which is 88, 89 days after the design, the body, that inherent wisdom in the DNA and the body. And Mercury has to do with the mind as well. So there are many things we could go deeper in here. But when we look at them at both sides, the personality and the design, we're going to have a little bit of a different geometry. And there's always something that wants to be said looking through the lens of both the design and the personality, both like something that can't be seen, I would say, looking just through the astrology. So here already we can see that there are a lot of alignment in many places. Here we actually have the design AC together, and then we also see that we can see that actually a lot of planets are on the same, the outer planets are on the same place, and I think that that's just actually accentuating what's already there. And I would like to, instead of like interpreting it here because it's so much, I would just say, let's go to the gene keys. Because what do the gene keys do? They are using a combination of conscious planets and unconscious planets, personality and design. And they are not going to use those planets that are on the same place really, because they are going to say, no, let's not look at the outer planets like Pluto and Neptune and Uranus. At this stage, we're going to have those planets later on in the gene keys. But for now, it's just looking at 11 spheres. And it's going to choose the sun and the earth. It's going to choose moon on the design side. It's going to choose Venus and Mars on both sides. And it's going to choose Jupiter on both sides. And that's basically what we have here. So we have sun and earth, conscious side. We have sun and earth, unconscious side. Then we have unconscious moon. We have conscious Venus and conscious Mars. Then unconscious Venus, unconscious Mars. We have Jupiter, and then back to the sun. So here we can say that here we have a map of the quantum that is activated right now through this solar eclipse, which is the last eclipse here in Sagittarius and in Gemini, like we were saying. And the cross here is the cross of consciousness. This is the cross that Richard Rudd has. He doesn't have it in the same order, but he has those 4 keys. It's a 2-4 design, and a 2-4 is here to be aware of itself. You know, it's here to be in dance with life and mirror itself in others, so that it gets to know more about itself. And maybe somehow that's what Lilith wanted to do. She wanted to be the truth of who she was, but she couldn't be mirrored in that. Instead, she was thrown out. So we can see that theme again. And then looking where the breakthrough is going. Well, the breakthrough is going to the 2 last keys of the whole I Ching. That is it's about light and truth. And that's what happens when we break through. That's what happens when we dare to be the dancer, when we dare to be in the adventure, when we dare to be in our own rhythm. That's when we can go to the very end of the story, where the inquiry is all about truth, and it's all about light. And when we look deeper into these keys, I would say that the 64 is the pathway of Tantra. It's after completion. The 63 is the completion and kind of the logical ending of things, the masculine pole. And then the 64 is the feminine pole. It's after completion, because in Tantra, you kind of always respond to life in every moment. And you're never done, because you're always facing the next breath, the next thing that's coming up. And that's the radiance here. Like the radiance, the aura becomes bigger if you live life ready to face whatever comes up in the next moment. And I would say, because we have a fourth line here in the radiance and purpose, so with what's activated here in this solar eclipse, what's going to be important is to have friendships. It's to have those fourth line qualities that have to do with trust, that has to do with our truths coming across to the other. And more than anything, it is that like everything starts with friendship. So whether it's a lover, whether it's a business relation, whether there is choosing to move somewhere, like your environment with the fourth line is your friends, is the people, the quality of the hearts that surround you. That would be possibly the best way of explaining it. And these are hearts, they're always going to inquire about what truth is. They're not just going to take it for granted. This is the archetype of the detective. And then here we have the archetype of the artist, that the feminine that is always ready to say yes to life. And then if we look at the inner part here, what's happening? What are we learning more through the Venus sequence, where we have those all the red spheres? What are the themes here? Well, it's going to be important to feel conflict at a cellular level. The 6 is connected to pH, so it is very sensitive and can sense when something is off. So it's asking us to come back to our bodies, because here, especially here in the vocation and the SQ, which is on the design side, Venus and Mars, we have the body. So it's very important to come back to the body and be able to discern where there's conflict, and also being able to discern where there's peace. That's important. And I also think that there is a letting go of a fear of failure that comes from our childhood, that comes from not having the right role models as children. We need to let go of that fear of failure, because the way that the world is going to work, it doesn't actually go, it doesn't, the laws or the rules that applied when we were children don't apply anymore. And that's what we can see, what we were saying as well with the old structures and Pluto and Venus, they're cracking. So whatever failure was before, it's not now. And instead it's you asking what's worth preserving. So one of the things that are worth preserving is the friendships. One thing that is worth preserving is your naturalness, is your own unique individual rhythm, and it's what is adventure for you, right? That's worth preserving. Instead of being fearful of failure, we want to say, okay, this is what I want to keep. Whatever falls apart, this is what I value. And that's again, like we were saying, Venus, who was saying that together with Pluto in this chart. And here we have it in a different way. Here we have it in the sign Venus that says, this is what I value. This is what's worth preserving. It's going to be important, I would say, to not be deaf, to not separate. And I can see this with what's going on in the world, that sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm just going to turn off so that I don't have to hear the craziness that's going on and the things that don't feel like they are constructive and helpful. But there is something here, if we want to be emotionally awake and emotionally competent, this is EQ, we need to be open. This is a gate that sits in between the ajna and the throat. And it's the gate of epiphany. It's the gate of bringing in, like having the penny drop and getting like insights and epiphanies, and then being able to translate them. So we need to have an openness, and we need to have time. I feel like the 43 also goes back to the 5. We need to have time to relax and to be in our rhythm, because that's how our insights really can drop through. And in the 6th line, it's speaking about those relationships that have all the qualities. from the very basic foundational to the dance with other, to the play with other, to the heart with other, to the expression with other, to the vision with other. Like that would be from line 1 to line 6. That's what emotionally is going to help us. And that's important that we find that in relationships. We could say the SQ is a little bit more what we do with ourselves, and the EQ is more of like, what do we get with others? Because remember that here, when we look at the natal chart, a birth chart, then these are the 9 months in the womb. These are the 7 first years. It's a lot with yourself, you becoming your own being from having been part of your mom's world and organism. And here you're 7 to 14. So here is when you start have relationship with others and also be able to discern things in with emotional intelligence as well. So that's going to be important, to not just cut off and separate, but to keep an openness and to have those friendships that are nurturing emotionally, where you can have all these different qualities. And I think, again, here we have that Venus we're looking at. It's important to not think that everything can be solved with our mind. If that was the thing, we would have everything, I feel, in Gemini, and even Mercury would be there. But Mercury is on the other side. So there is something about beliefs that are important, new beliefs. And I think with beliefs, here we have the gift frequency of inspiration. It's asking yourself, what am I inspired by? Because I know that there are things that I see that are not inspiring at all. And then I know that I'm not vibrating. That's not making my energy vibrate in a higher frequency. I have the 61 in my south node on the design side, and I also have it in my SQ. So for me, I know that when I'm inspired, that is how my heart opens. So I feel like here, in order to know, like, how do we keep aware of the shadow frequency of psychosis? Well, if you keep asking yourself, what's my inspiration? What do I care about? What's my inspiration? What do I care about Venus? What's my inspiration? 61. What's natural for me? What dance do I want to dance? Those are going to be things that are going to keep us from falling into psychosis, together with following our own rhythm, with living our adventure, with living this tantric life of not making conclusions, but actually living in a constant inquiry and a constant yes to life. And I think there's at least one thing that I want to say, two things, so that we touch a little bit on all the spheres. I mean, here, the 6 line attraction, that is, I have been speaking about this the whole week. So if you go back and look at our lives that we did this week, it's really been, for Lunar Alchemist was the theme. For me and Ashley was a theme. In the inner circle, where we're doing the sacral chakra, it was a theme. So this is the Kundalini, and this is extremely connected to the sun being eclipsed in the South Pole, right? Because here again, we have this Kundalini attraction that's rising, and the 6 line stands for really understanding that our energy of wholeness has to do with being in an animal body, having a human heart, having a creator mind, and touching spirit. So we are touching Mother Earth. We're touching the soul of Mother Earth through our base, through our animal body. And then we are also touching spirit and creator and the Father with our mind and our higher chakras, with our third eye. We can see our awareness expanding, and we can see more. And then in the middle, we have the human heart, where those two energies, soul and spirit, are meeting, and where we are that alchemy and integration of the feminine and the masculine energies. So the 6 line basically says, I can see all that. We're animal, we're human, we're creators. We're also the kind of connectors between earth and heaven. And that's where they meet and make love in our hearts. And for me, that is the 40.6. The 6 is understanding that we have that wholeness of everything from the bottom to up, everything from the earth to the sky. And the 40 is the surrender to that. And there is an inherent disappointment in human beings, because we haven't seen that way in relationships. We haven't seen that in intimacy. So we have a disappointment saying, yeah, that sounds nice, but I don't really feel like spirit and soul are making love in my heart. You know, that's a core wound when it comes to a sexual core wound. We haven't lived relationships like that. We haven't lived love making like that and intimacy like that. So that's there. But really, the resolve here is to remember this truth and start to not only remember it on an intellectual level, but feeling it in your body. You want to feel it in your yoni. You want to feel it in your lingam. You want to feel it in your hara. You want to feel it in your solar plexus. You want to feel it in your heart. You want to feel it through your expression, through your breath, through your vocal cords. You want to feel it in your third eye. And not only feel it, but actually see it through your third eye. And you want to feel the connection through the crown. All that needs to come back online. I've been speaking about it all week. It's a rewiring of our electrical system, our magnetism and our electricity. It's a rewiring of that. And the magnetism absolutely has to do with this attraction sphere, because depending on how you're wired and how connected you are with your different parts, that's what you're going to attract. So if you have a fragmentation or a wiring that is fragmented, that's basically what you're going to attract. That's everything that this attraction sphere is talking to us about, because it is the moon, and that's what pulls on the water, on the tides, and that's what you can kind of drown in, right? So we want to make sure that we understand this energy and that we come back online, so that our wiring with the poles that are in us, the feminine, the masculine, and how they meet, that is actually illuminating our true blueprint, we could say. And that is the resolve. Here you see there's a surrender to this truth, but through that there's also resolve. There is a solution that comes through that. That is the divine will of the amazingness that is there in being human at this moment in the world. And the last thing I wanted to say is that we have the 30 twice in Pearl and culture. This is an Aquarius gate, right? And it's about lightness. So we are here to become lighter. We're here to become more transparent. When we are focused, or when we are stuck in the lower chakras, only in the lower chakras, and we can't see the wholeness of who we are in the whole chakra pillar and feel the Kundalini move through the whole chakra pillar, we are dense. And that's when we are dense in desire, which is the shadow frequency in culture and Pearl. We're dense. We can only feel it for me. And it's a desire that really just makes this hunger worth, because, worse, you can eat, but you're going to be hungry again. You can have sex, but you're going to be hungry again. So that's the low frequency when we are not connected on a 6 line level, but only in the lower chakras. So as we are coming online, as we can circulate our life force, our Kundalini, the lightness is there with us. And here we see, this is the essence. And in astrology, we say that Jupiter is the law. So the law that, what we need to follow in this geometry of this chart is Jupiter, that says lightness. Where is your lightness? What are you desiring to feel? Not from a low frequency, lower chakra place, but from you being back online in the truth of who you are, feeling the truth of who you are, animal, heart, creator. It's from that place. It's from that place that you're going to walk through the world. It's from that place that you're going to create. It's from that place that you're going to spark. And we see here that the channel that we have between the 30 in the solar plexus and then the root is the 41. So that's the start codon. Something new is starting. And the 41 is also an Aquarius energy. So it feels like it's speaking about the Aquarius energy here a lot. And it probably has to do with the tension also between Uranus and Saturn that are, the old and the new. But Aquarius is really strong, and it's telling us about that Jupiter. How do we attune on an everyday basis in culture, and what is the essence of this? And here I've seen it this week too, when we were looking at the Kundalini, the creativity, the life force, and the mutation that happens through that. It's all about the individual. In human design, that is part of the individual circuitry. And I know that this is kind of advanced, but it's part of this middle pillar. And in the middle pillar, when we look at the body graph, all these gates and channels are individual. That's where creativity lies, the pulse of life, Kundalini, life force. And what we see here in the law, in the culture, and how to kind of behave on an everyday basis to expand, because expansion is Jupiter, it is the individual. So right now it seems like it is to tune into your uniqueness. And Lilith, she dared to do that. And maybe she was a little bit crazy for her time, but it tells us to be who we are. It tells us to be that individual and to find the lightness. Maybe at that point she wasn't ready to really step in also to the lightness. Maybe in that we were still transmuting some of the rage of the dark feminine that also has its place, but there might be something new to step into that has to do with Aquarius, that has to do with lightness, that has to do with a higher octave of our emotions. And that is also that mutation of the solar plexus center that's happening, so that all our awareness center come back online. That has to do with the wiring that I was speaking about before. So we have splenic awareness, which is very much linked to the body and the senses, like the animals that can feel danger and then they can survive because they get out of the danger. And then we have the Ajna, which is the human way to think things and conceptualize and problem solve, know what works and what doesn't work. And where we have the mutation now is in the solar plexus center, where it has been a lot of like the pulling of us, and we are kind of being pulled off center more than using it as this amazing compass to feel what's right and what isn't. So we are purifying the center. We are transcending a lot of those shadow frequencies so that the emotions can come back online together with the spleen, together with the Ajna. And then we're safe in a way, because we have a GPS that is centered not in one place, but it has those different awarenesses working together instead of just living from the mind or just living from the like kind of physical awareness, or trying to figure out what's true and what's not true in the emotions. So definitely we are on a stepping stone to something new, and there's also this remembering of the old and kind of healing part of those wounds that were there, whether we're speaking about the sexual wound or we're speaking about the Lilith wound. It's time to come back to our truth. It's time to come back online totally. It's time to feel our lightness and use that energy for our expansion together. And somehow at the end of the day, it's always going to be together, because I see a lot of individuality in this, in the charts. And at the same time, we want to know, we know that in the natural rhythms of what humanity is, where we have the 5 and the 15, humanity is one. So even if you are tuning into your individual truth and life force and getting rewired, we are part of the same organism. So what happens in the whole is going to impact us. And that's where we want to ask those questions. What are we here to preserve? How can we find peace together? How can we face life in every moment together? How can we create stability through friendship and trust and kinship? How can we be more intelligent, not just through our minds, but also through our emotions, and include everything of what we are in this relating, instead of being deaf for the other. So I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop here. I hope that this was helpful and illuminating, and allow those energies to work with you for the next few days. Thank you so much.